Was Vasily Lomachenko robbed, or is Devin Haney just that hated? Knuckleheads, this is a topic I've been wanting to discuss for a minute, and I apologize for being a little bit late on it, but it's something I wanted to allow myself to really register and think about before I just started spouting off as I usually do. And it's also something that I wanted to analyze, right? I wanted to look at the reaction of the boxing public and see what all of them thought about this fight prior to giving my opinion on the fight. And look, I want to say, before I tell you guys who I think won this fight, right, and what I think about the decision, I want to preface this by saying, listen, this is just my perspective. I'm not mad at you if you have a different one. You can argue in the comment section below. That's what this channel is for. So be sure to subscribe and join to support. So Knuckleheads, a lot of people have been saying that this was a robbery. A lot of people in boxing, a lot of fans, a lot of people on social media have been crying robbery about this fight, right? And I want to say that I understand that perspective, but I don't agree with it, right? Now, I'll explain why I understand it. I understand it because I do think Lomachenko, he's very endearing to the boxing fans and to casual fans as well, right? He's, first off, from the Ukraine, went back to his country to help fight in the war. He's an Olympic two-time gold medalist with upwards of 400 fights. He's the Matrix, he's flashy, he's incredible to watch. The guy doesn't really rub anyone the wrong way. He's been an amazing champion, he's been an amazing fighter, an amazing guy, and I think everybody wanted to see him climb that summit at 135 pounds and unify the titles. And I think a lot of people were emotionally invested in Lomachenko, right? Likewise, I have to say that Devin Haney is on the other side, and a lot of people don't really respect Devin Haney. They don't see big power from Devin Haney. They don't see too much flashiness from Devin Haney. He's just not as endearing to boxing fans for those reasons, right? And then on top of it, I think what really amplified the emotional investment in Lomachenko in this fight, besides the fact that, this is pretty much his last chance to be undisputed at the weight, and they made it seem like it was his last hurrah, is the fact that Devin Haney pushed Lomachenko in a very disrespectful way at the weigh-in. Now, I will say, me personally, right, I always go for the American fighter, so I was riding with Haney until I saw that push. That's the kind of thing I don't like. I think that's the kind of thing that could compromise a fight. As someone who's promoted fights before, I understand that could bring some attention to the fight, but I disagree with the theory that any news is good news, any attention is good attention. I thought that was bad attention. And it looks like today it came out that Devin Haney's getting fined like $400,000 for that push. So, I think there's better ways of building up a fight than to do something as reckless as that could have potentially, right, caused an injury and maybe ended the fight right there, and then we would all been SOL. But, I do think you need to analyze that, right? You need to look at that to determine why people are so upset about this decision, because if it's not for all those circumstances, Lomachenko's age, where he's at in his career, how amazing he is, what he means to the country and to pop culture and to society with having gone and fought in the Ukraine and everything else, and then, you juxtapose that with Devin Haney, who, pushed him at the weigh-in, and people don't really think he's all that good, and people are always down on him, and he doesn't really have power or flashiness or anything like that. You see why there was such a skewed emotional investment by the boxing fans towards Lomachenko. That being said, in watching the fight, and you guys already understand my perspective of boxing scoring criteria, and you can look it up on the internet for yourself. But my understanding of boxing scoring criteria is you count effective punches first and you count volume second, right? And then you count ring generalship and everything else. So the first thing we look at in the pro ranks, we got to look at effective striking, right? Who was landing the effective strikes? Who was landing the strikes that had the most impact? And then we also have to, remember, we have to judge this thing round by round, right? Now, if you're watching the entirety of the fight and you're watching it play out, right, as if it were one round, you would probably come away saying that, I felt like Lomachenko not only landed more, according to CompuBox, but I felt like Lomachenko landed the more impactful shots at times, right? Especially in the 10th, 11th round. I mean, you would say that the most effective round for either fighter would have probably been the 10th round for Lomachenko. But unfortunately, that is not the way, or fortunately, that is not the way boxing is scored, right? You got to score on a round-by-round basis. And it was my opinion, as I was watching the fight, that Lomachenko was not getting off, right? And this is, especially in the first half of the fight, probably the first 7 or 8 rounds, 6 or 7 rounds. And, this is not an amateur fight. Again, you got to land some shots, but you also got to throw your hands. I felt like he wasn't really getting off that much, and he was allowing Haney to bank those early rounds. And I remember at some point in the broadcast, they brought up their scores, and the broadcasters had it about even or tilted towards Lomachenko, and I kind of disagreed. I felt like Haney was doing good body work. I felt like his shots to the body were being counted by the judges as they should have. And, let's say Lomachenko had a flurry here and there. I just felt like Devin Haney was doing more of the good work, more of the effective work, just ever so slightly in a lot of the rounds, especially in the first half of the fight, right? So when the second half, right, of the fight came along, or I guess you could say the back third, Lomachenko started to turn it on, and I felt like, okay, he's upped the ante a bit, and now he's the one that's kind of taking control, and he's the one that's being the most effective. And I did think in rounds 10 or 11, those were the most effective rounds for either fighter. But again, that's not how the fight is scored, And in looking at in watching the fight, and again, I didn't score it round by round, but I did feel like Devin Haney was winning the first half of the fight, and I felt like Lomachenko sort of took over the second half of the fight. And when it came to the end, I felt like it was a very close fight. I felt like depending on how you score boxing, right, you could have seen either guy winning. If you like volume, it's Lomachenko. If you like effective strikes, in my opinion, it was probably Haney. But I would have been okay with either guy winning this fight. So when Devin Haney won by what I think is a pretty close margin, 115, 113 on a couple of the judges' scorecards, I was not surprised, right? Because I could see that. The 116, 112, I don't know. That might have been a bit too generous for Haney. Again, I'd have to go back and score it round by round. But you guys got to understand that in scoring a fight, effective strikes matter most. Now, I say that, right? I say that because I feel like, and I also mentioned earlier, right? It depends on what you're looking for. I say that because it kind of shouldn't depend on what you're looking for, right? Volume doesn't win fights in the pros. Volume of strikes is something you look at secondarily, only if the effective strikes are even. So if one guy has landed more effective strikes than the other guy in a round, then volume shouldn't even be considered. It's cast by the wayside. But if the guys are hitting each other effectively at the same level, then you look at volume. And, I believe if that's not the case, then we look at ring generalship and everything else. So, for me, I was okay with the decision. I would have been okay with either guy winning, but I could definitely see a case for Devin Haney, and I could see a case for Vasily Lomachenko. So, was it a robbery? My question to you guys is, who do you have winning? Who did you have winning, and was it a robbery? I didn't think it was a robbery at all. I thought it was a very close fight. And I wasn't sure who won. I picked Lomachenko to win by decision. I thought he might win by decision. But, I was okay with the way the decision went. It was a very interesting fight. Also, let me know in the comment section below, is $400,000 fine for the push, is that a bit too harsh, or do you think it's deserved? In my opinion, it's deserved because that kind of thing, could have pretty much ended the night for both guys and ended their opportunity to make any money. And I think by enforcing that sort of harsh penalty, now you make it a deterrent, right? So that guys don't do that stupid shit in the future. It's okay to get in front of each other and mouth off and do all that, but man, the push Devin Haney delivered was very strong there. Another thing I wanted to discuss, right, before we close out the video is, I think that this whole narrative of a robbery is very harmful for Devin Haney. I think instead of getting his flowers for what he did against an incredible fight and incredible fighter in Lomachenko, now he's marred by even more controversy and what ifs, and now he's going to have even more doubters, and he's going to have to work very hard to silence those doubters, and I'm not sure if he deserves that, right? At the same time, I also want to mention this Lomachenko, as fantastic of a fighter as he is, at the age of 35 is not the same Lomachenko from 5 years ago. I spoke with a friend of mine, shout out Ignorant Gary, and we felt like the Lomachenko that fought Gary Russell, Nicholas Walters, those guys would have probably won this fight. But the old lion fought the young lion. The young lion's only 23 and 24 years old or something like that. I mean, Haney hasn't even reached his prime yet, you guys. So you got to give him credit too. But, I just wanted to put that out there. Lomachenko wasn't getting off like I expected him to. Wasn't as active as I thought he would be, or he should be, or as active as he used to be. You could tell he's aged. There's a lot of miles on the odometer. At the same time, Devin Haney, for his age, 23, 24 years old, amazing job. And listen, on this channel, he's getting his flowers. I don't like the push. Young man, we could have done without the push. But great job. Great job to the both of you, man. That was an incredible fight. That's what boxing needs. And I loved it. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please be sure to subscribe and join the channel. We'll be going live, hopefully, after the big fights on Saturday. There's a bunch of great fights in the UK on Saturday, so we'll be going live after that. And let me know what you guys think.